let's look at a concrete case study of how to use actually Excel for something in the real life. The point of Excel, or rather the point of our course part that covers Excel, is not to just have you clicking around stuff, but to actually show you how you can use these tools in later on in your studies or in your professional life. So the situation we have here is a bookshop that has sold a few books that we see here. Those books have properties attached to them. There's an author code, which we'll see in a second. What is it about? The title of the book, the ISBN number, some like unique identifier, and the publisher ID, the publishing date, price, edition, and the date on which the copyright was issued. We also have another sheet here called author that has information about the persons who wrote the book, and those are connected here together by author code. Here corresponds to author ID on this file. Yeah. So imagine this is the sales of one day of the shop, and we want to calculate some statistics or something around it. So what would be interesting in this case to look at, for example, is, as we've done before during the lecture, calculating the price, actually the price at which the book was sold, which is the price plus VAT. We can always create additional columns here, just adding some title, and then defining the calculation in the corresponding column in terms of a formula. So if I want to add VAT, so then I need to multiply the value here by a certain percentage to add the get the total price here. So let's do that. Actually, let's do something else first. Let's calculate VAT separately, and then we can just add it, right? So to calculate the VAT in the case of Czech Republic, that's a 21% rate. So I would have to multiply, I start my formula with equal, I'll have to multiply this value by 21%. You can either write 21% as I just did, or 0.21, that's going to be the same. And that gives you the price here. And I can just double click to throw the formula all around. Now, you notice that, well, this has different formatting because this has just general formatting, while this has some specific currency formatting. So we can just do that here. Pressing Control, I can unselect the title and then just change this to currency. That's US dollars, and there it is. Yeah, so just by clicking on the bottom, I get automatically rounded and with the dollar sign in front of it. Now I can add the VAT. So that's just adding these two quantities. That is F2 plus I2 here. We see them highlighted. And there we go. Yeah, so that's the total price at which this book is sold. And then I can just double click on the small square on the lower right corner that will propagate the formula across the whole column. Okay, so it's super easy to calculate additional quantities derived from the ones we have. And we can also do that with text. So let's go now to the Order tab here. And we can create say a full name column. I'll respect the naming convention of the previous two. And that will be just creating the column that will have the full name either as last name, comma, first name. That's usually what is used on books, or just first name, last name, which is what we use in normal life. Yeah, so if you do that, then this will not work here. Now here we have two choices. One thing that can work is just try to teach Excel from a few examples. I just did the same name convention here. Then Excel might offer a flash fill sometimes, which is not the case now. Nope. Sometimes, depends on your version, you can get a flash fill. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get it now. Let's see, after 3 examples. And nope, Excel still refuses to do it. Sometimes you can, if your Excel version supports it, you can get really the flash fill, and then you, after writing a couple of examples, you can double click on the lower right square, and then it will propagate the formula. If you are out of luck, as I am here, then there is a more complicated way that involves also using functions. I'll just show you, and that is by using the concat function. So concat will take text in different as its different arguments. So that's the value of B2 followed by a comma in quotation marks, and then the value of column C2. And this should give me exactly what I wanted. Perhaps I need to add some spacing here so that it doesn't look so terrible. And that works. Yeah. So concat, the same. And now, since this is a formula, the references are not absolute, so then I can drag it across the whole column. Yeah, so I have I have the possibility also to create derived columns from not only numerical but from non-structured data sources like text here. Now we can add some formatting just to make it nice. So can select these columns here, maybe make it bold, center those values, just to make it a little bit nicer to work with. Okay, so shook. Now that we have some formatting, we can come up with some more questions. So the first thing I want to show you is, well, how to create some derived information. Let's say we would like to have the following. We would like to have a table that shows the top 10 authors by the top 10 most expensive books. Or rather, 10 most expensive books. That's strange English of mine. So 10 most expensive books and their authors. So I would like to have something like book title here, then followed by author, and then followed by price. Yeah, so how can I create this table? I know I have all that information there. Just created a new sheet here. I'll just relocate it. Can always create new sheets on this plus button. We can go back and forth these two tables in the following way. There are several strategies here that we can use. So let's first rename this sheet to top 10 by price. This is what I wanted. Okay, so can add some formatting here first, and for this title here, I would like to have it like kind of prominent on the top of the table. So I would rather do some select these 3 columns and just go here to merge and center. That will take care of having everything a little bit nicer. Then most, okay, I need to, I'll make those a little bit bigger just so that there is enough space for that. And now you see that this this whole block is kind of collapsed into one column that goes across these three cells, and then I can add some independent formatting here just to make it look like a table. Too much independent formatting. Okay, so now we have kind of the skeleton of at least aesthetically of what we want to do. Now let's go back to the book spreadsheet, and one common thing to do is to actually sort it, to sort the table to get like top 10, lowest 10, etc. So let's start by selecting everything with Control A or Mac Command A, then sort and filter, and add some filter there. You can add some filter there, or just directly sort from, in this case, largest to smallest. Yes, we want the top 10. Those are there, and that kind of gives me the name of the top 10 books, right? So I'll do the following here. So once I have them sorted, I can select the first 10 titles. So from cells 2 to 11, I see here on the lower screen count 10. So that's those 10 titles here. I will copy those on the new sheet, and then I will be bringing back the information I want. Yeah, I'll copy also the author code, at least temporarily, and then we can get rid of it. So let's just so those are my 10. Okay, now it says 20 because it's 2 columns, so that's okay. And I'll bring this to the top 10 by price column. Okay, so I'll put it here somewhere first, because I'm gonna use this in a second. Okay, so I need this information here, author code, although it won't be part of my table. I can later hide it, because it wouldn't look nice, right? So I have my structure already for these 3 columns and so on, but I need to have a way to connect between the book and the order sheets. So I have the titles here. I could have copied the prices as well directly, but I'm going to show you a different way to do it. That can also be used in other situations, and that will actually help us to recall also the information from the authors. So let's say I want to look here. I want to have the price corresponding to this book. So I will use the VLOOKUP function. VLOOKUP function is VLOOKUP. Here, just hit on tab to see. So the VLOOKUP function will look for a value on a table. So I want to look for this value, that's the book title, on a table. I need to select the table on which I want to look for it. That table should start with the column that has the value I'm looking for. Yeah, that's kind of the assumption of the structure of the VLOOKUP function. We create a table with the value that we on the who has the leftmost column, the column that we are looking for. Okay, so that's the table right here. And we want to cover everything until the quantity we actually want, which is the price in this case. So I'll just select all of this, and then now pass to the next argument, which is the column index number. That means from this table I selected from B2 to F50, the column call index number is the number of the column that has the value that I'm looking for. So this is column 1, that's column B, column 2 is column C, this is column 3, column 4, and column 5 has the value I want to retrieve. So that call index num is 5 here. And finally, there's a argument called approximate match or exact match, and that approximate match is used in situations when we want to look at ranges. If you look at the exercise on week 13, we had a situation on which we had to look some compensation levels on a range of values. In this case, we want to actually have an exact match. We want to look exactly for the book title there and then retrieve the value. So I'll choose false here. And then I'll close the formula. And if I go, I see the price of 2025, which should be the price of the first book if we did everything correctly, which it is. Note that the formatting is not copied, so we'll have to do that by ourselves. But we can first drag the formula here and now just easily switch to the formatting. It's not exactly the same, but we can kind of modify it. If we go here and just adjust it somewhere, but this is not terribly important. The thing is that this formatting here is also not exactly the same, right? So let's hide this under the table and rather just modify this. Boom, now everything is the same. Okay, anyhow, now we have the prices here that we bring from the other table through the VLOOKUP function. And we can do the same thing with the author, and this is why I need the author code, because I need to connect the code of this book with the code of the author on the corresponding table. So now, just to do that, I'll invoke again the VLOOKUP function. I'm going to look this time for this value on the table here. It doesn't matter if you select the header or not. I mean, the value is not going to be there anyway, so it doesn't hurt. I go to the now call index argument, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I start looking on the table which starts with the author code or author ID. Then I pick the fourth column here, and I want this match to be exact again, because I want the exact title name, exact order name, false. Okay, false. And this is, okay, so now this is a formula as I want it. And then it just propagates the values here. And here we have an error because we don't have absolute references on the table. In this case, that's important. And we also should have it here. So here we also see this is moving. So let's add those absolute references. Those are necessary always, I would say always when using the VLOOKUP function to avoid things from moving around, because Excel will shift the values for you. So now this is P2 F15 in all of them, and this is A1. Should be now, after I change these to absolute references, A1 D24 everywhere. So that takes care of the incorrectly filled in values. Okay, so now I have this table. This is still kind of ugly, but we can hide it, and then we see here that it's hidden. We can just unhide it if we need to, but just by double clicking there where it is hidden. but we don't, and this is actually like more informative. Now note that we do need to copy the column so that the VLOOKUP function can reference to it. So even if it's not there visible, it is still there in its spirit. So the VLOOKUP function can use it to retrieve the author name. Okay. There are two more tools that are useful in practice for quick analysis, and that is and the motivation for those is that, well, we don't always want to look at information at the level of each transaction or of each individual purchase as it is in this case. Maybe we want to look at information at an aggregated level. For example, we might want to see sales per publisher, right, or the average price at which a book is sold by a certain publisher. So we can do that by just go here and insert, and I don't even need to do that. I can just go insert here and go to either pivot table or recommended pivot table. Pivot table will give me the possibility to aggregate information and display it in flexible ways. So when I go here to pivot, click here on pivot table, I'll get this window. So that shows the range that is selected. So it's kind of the same as doing Control A or Command A. So I'll add a pivot table here on a new sheet. And now we have 4 options here. So that's columns, rows, and values. A pivot table will be like a matrix where you have columns, like the headers of a matrix, rows, and then in values you'll have aggregated quantities. For example, a very simple table we could do here is by the publishers. So we can look at publisher ID on the rows, so that shows me all of those, and let's say the revenue or the total sold of each publisher. Yeah, so those are the values that appear here. We can add more than one table here, more than one quantity here, so we can add sum of price, which means like the total sold, or we can change it here. Instead of having the same quantity again, we can change the operation that is done on those. So instead of calculating the total per publisher, it can calculate the average. Yeah, so average sold per each publisher, maybe the total as well, like the total units. Yeah, so the again on value field settings, and let's say count here. Okay, so oh yeah, this is the one here. You can adjust those fields by moving to up and down. So for example here, and then you can rename those values if you don't like the default names, which are kind of ugly. So instead of sum of price, I would say like total sales, average price, average sell price, and then pieces sold here, or something like that. Oops. Yeah. And again, like add some formatting here just to make it all kind of consistent. Yeah, so there are some grand totals here that are sometimes handy to show per like the total per column. Yeah. So that sheet here has like collected information at the publisher level. One can get more baroque and add also columns and filters, which we haven't added. In this case, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I will just show you if it would make sense how it would look like. Let's add, for example, publisher date as a column here. So then what we will see here is revenue per publisher per year. Sorry, sell total sold per publisher per year. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So revenue, but from a site, revenue of the shop per publisher per copyright book. Yeah. And those are those values here. This now note that there are some repetitions here. That's because there is like one column. Yeah, we can get rid of. We won't be able to get rid of this one. Yeah, so this like from each value columns are here, so it gets repeated. Yeah, you can recover this information if you hit on the table, and if you lose it, you'll find it here on field list under pivot table analyze. Then you can find this table here. Yeah, so this is not particularly useful in this case, but you can, have an idea of how it would look like, and it might be useful in other cases. So I'll just remove this one, and this one. When working with dates, Excel will generate like several levels of aggregation, because it's not. Sometimes it's useful to have not exact date, but rather per month or per quarter, and so on, so which is what was created there. But you can remove those that you don't need. Yeah. Okay. Besides creating this type of table of aggregations in table form, we can also directly use charts. I'll show you here. Insert pivot chart, and on the same table range, it works as a pivot table, and then it will do kind of the same thing, but now it will just look like a pivot chart. So if instead I want to have same values here, so the publishers as categories, and then the total price, the total sold per publisher, then that's sum of price, and then it immediately generates the table itself. Yeah, so pivot tables and pivot charts are super useful when we want to consider aggregated information, not at the individual level of which row of data that we have, but after grouping. Yeah, so aggregating means grouping. So we group first, we do some calculation there, some statistical, some total, some means, whatever, and then we show it either on a table or on a chart. These three operations, creating new columns, creating pivot tables and pivot charts, and using VLOOKUP functions, will put you way ahead of a lot of people using Excel, and will really help you forward in your professional career, because Excel is a tool that is really needed in day-to-day life in many fields. If you want to analyze any kind of data, and believe me, there's more and more data that is being produced, that is being used for decision making. So it is actually a good investment of your time to take a little bit of practice on that, and get proficient on it.